Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Canadian Immigration Live Q&A. I'm here with my fearless co-pilot, Alicia. How are you doing, Alicia?
I am well. I am really glad it's sunny today, Mark. It's warm, it's nice. We've had really kind of cold, blizzardy weather, and then all of a sudden the Chinook came through. There was howling winds, and now it's sunny. So I'm happy about that.
I know. I think we all are. Last week, as I told people in my Q&A yesterday, we had decided to go skiing, and we had thought this is going to be a great day to go. A week to take off with reading week with Michaela not having classes to go. And we got a nice place that we booked like a year and a half ago, right on the hill. So we literally can just kind of walk out, put on the skis, and the lift is right there. Well, it doesn't help when it's minus 30 out to try to go skiing. It tends to freeze your face off. So our first run up, we went up this little kiddie hill, and just to kind of, the girls wanted to practice spinning in circles and doing kind of 360 turns. And well, by the time we got down there and then got on a little bigger lift to go up halfway up the hill, our masks were all frozen with this film of ice, not just like fog where you brush it off. It was like ice you had to scratch off. And it was so cold that, you had to keep every ounce of skin covered. Otherwise you would have gotten frostbite. And so, yes. So that's the interesting world, and the weather's unpredictable. But even being out there, I was sad to miss the live Q&As last week, but we're happy to be back again right now. And we're happy for all of you guys to join us, whether you're watching on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn. We're really happy to have you here. Okay, so let's do a few shout outs here, and let's get the party started here. Okay, so we have, oh yes. Okay, why don't we start off with the complaints? Okay, Alicia, let's start off with all the people who are so frustrated and really, well, disappointed with this fella right here. He was really big yesterday, but unfortunately we're going to have to shrink him down because I think he should kind of hide a little bit in the background here. We'll put him over here, Mr. Fraser, because you have to answer to these people. Let's see what he has to say. So, this is Sherry. Sherry says, hey, another PNP draw. So unfair to all CAC folks that put so much dollars into this economy. Nayan Deep says, have they stopped point-based draws completely? And then Promise, she says, what is Fraser up to with these only PNP draws? Alicia, do you want to speak on behalf of Minister Fraser as to what you think might be the issue here?
Why would I do that, Mark? I don't know if I can play devil's advocate here. I saw that yesterday and it just is really disappointing. I feel for you guys. I agree. It's not fair, right? You have a system where you're supposed to have points, you're supposed to have certainty, you're supposed to have predictability, and then all of a sudden COVID hits, that goes out the window. You've got to pause and draws entirely. Nobody knows what to do. Your status is running out. Well, kudos to the minister because they did do some programs for people who are stuck in Canada, the TR to PR
Yeah.
program. The rollout was crazy, right? Like to try to get that application filed as a race, that was insane. But they did do a number of temporary public policy measures to try to facilitate pathways for Canadian people who are in Canada to be able to stay in Canada. However, if you're looking to transition to permanent residency, express entry is really the key way to go. And to have all these program specific draws where it's PNP only, or this bizarre February 2nd draw where they did a FSW only for the first time in express entry history, it's really hard for the people who are waiting for that no program specified or for CEC for that matter. And so you have a whole bunch of people who've been waiting since January and have no ability to try to get that, to get their application finalized and to hopefully try to get open work permit or a bridging work permit that's closed if they have a PNP. So it is really tough for people. And I don't know. I would really hope that maybe they do another draw under a no program specified maybe today. But again, the other thing that's throwing everybody off is now there's no regularity to when they're doing the draws either. It's really tough. Oh, Mark, I can't hear you. Oh,
Back now?
yeah,
Okay.
I can hear you.
There we go. Good. Yeah, it's been quite a painful process for so many people. And it's always been the lack of transparency. Leaving people in limbo, Minister Fraser, is something that you're causing the most harm of all. And when you issue 18-month extensions back to back, there is somewhat of an expectation that there will be a plan laid forward, not just like back in the end of October, when there was, the minister was forced by his own party to develop a pathway TR to PR. Well, it really was a packaging of what was already said, although I was able to pull out a number of little hints, I guess, if you will, as to what the direction that he was going. And if you go to I just point the viewers over here to see if it slides over. There we go. To our website. Remember that we're constantly producing blog posts. And I just completed, I'm waiting for the video to be launched, the Future of Express Entry, my top 7 insights for where I think the 2023 target draws are going to go. And this isn't just fluff, you guys. This is going through this consultative instructions that the IRCC pushed out at the beginning of January, where where basically they wanted feedback on what people, the stakeholders, thought the targeted draw should be focused on. So although they were asking questions, they were almost setting things up in a way that was telling us really what they were going to do anyways. So I head over to the website and make sure that you check out the blog posts and all of the content that has been released over the last little while. All right. Oh, I better get over here to Alicia here. I've got a bunch of different buttons. This is the one we want. All right. So that is the reality. Okay, let's jump in and let's give a few shout outs to some people here. So we've got Eric tuning in from Cameroon. Welcome, Eric. We've got Cindy, who is over in Vancouver. Welcome, Cindy. Great to have you here. Let's see. We've got Simran, who's tuning in from Vancouver. Hello, Simran. Good to see you. And let's see if we have any other little shout outs we can make. If you're tuning in from somewhere unique, we love to hear from that. But even if you're here local, if you're in Alberta, where Alicia and I are, or if you're in Ontario, where Cedric and Chanel are, or anywhere across Canada or around the world, please post a comment. We'd love to give you shout outs. Okay. Let's see. As far as announcements and things, I guess the one thing I want to, before we jump right into the questions, is just to notify people. I'm really excited about this, Alicia. Oh, am I excited about this? I want to notify people if you go, and it's actually in the description of the video as well. If you go here, Minister Fraser, I'm sorry, my friend. I'm going to have to move you. I'm going to have to move you out. You're blocking Alicia. Okay. So if you, basically, if you look here and you go right at the top of the Canadian Immigration Institute site, there's a link to the podcast. And you can, if you haven't subscribed to this, absolutely do it, because we had a really fun episode that we just released this morning. If you haven't listened to it, you've got to check it out. It's where we have all members of our firm have joined in. So it's quite an interactive podcast where we talk about some of the most recent trends and thoughts and things like that. And so you get a chance to meet the entire Holthe Law team. And then Igor hosted what we decided after recording it should be called the Impossible Trivia Competition. And the trivia contest is really a Canadian trivia, but this is focused on Canadian history, geography, culture, and immigration. But I don't know where the heck Igor got the questions from, because, you'll have to listen to hear who the winner was, but it was a miracle in and of itself that any questions were answered properly. So Igor was a little aggressive in the level of difficulty. I'd call it the Genius Edition. Hey, Alicia?
Let's just say out of 10 questions, we all failed.
Yes, no one got, even half of them correct. But there was a winner, and I'm gonna let you guys guess who it was. All right. Okay, so check that out. Make sure you absolutely do. And we created it because you're all starting to commute back to work now. So We've got the video that's here for those of you who are skipping and playing hooky on your employer and watching this, or in your classes at school. But the podcast is there so that you can tune in the mornings in your commutes. And we welcome feedback on it as well. And you'll see as you're listening to the podcast, you can send an email to trivia@holthelaw.com for a recommended question. Maybe you've got a question that you think would be great for trivia. You can send it to trivia, TRIVIA, just like this, at holthelaw.com. And you can send it, and then Igor will choose some of the best ones to include in the next episode of our Canadian trivia contest. And above all, you can play along and let us know how you did. So once you do it, as we go live, let us know how you scored compared to us.
And I should add too, for listeners and watchers, that we did touch on a few of the new programs that were released, the kind of information updates in terms of what's going on with biometrics, what's going on with, the new program that's saying that you actually have to have, or they're extending their ability to have a work permit issued from inside Canada if you're only on visitor status. We are talking about some of the policy initiatives that are happening at the beginning of that podcast too. So there's a meat and bones update in it too.
You bet. Absolutely. Right at the beginning. And that's kind of how the pattern is going to flow for the next little bit. Alicia and I are going to be recording another 2 or 3 episodes of our business immigration series on Friday, tomorrow. So stay tuned for those to be dropped each week as well. All right, Armin, it's good to see you. Henry Kim, tuning in from Trinidad. Thank you so much, guys, for all your work and effort. You are very, very welcome, Henry. Singh Harmeet says, hey, guys. We've got lots of people posting and giving us an opportunity to highlight them. So that's awesome. Yesterday, I actually had, Alicia, it was awesome. I opened it up and provided the link to join as a guest. And I said, anybody who wants to come and join as a guest and connect in can do that. And I posted the link to join me. And I had a client, Peter, actually connect in from his feedlot on his phone, with the, Angus cattle behind him. And it was so cool to have him join us. It was really, really fun. So it was very cool. Desagan is from Calgary, and we've got Hannah's over in Morocco. Sean's song, Alberta is Calling. Yeah, maybe. Who knows? We've got Luvette, who's over from the Congo. Wonderful. What a great group of people. Oh, there we go. Jules is over in the Netherlands. This is what I love to see, is a wide variety, and seeing how far all over the world this little live Q&A stretches to. All right.
And I think it's funny, Mark, that somebody mentioned Alberta is calling, because Alberta, the province, has been doing a lot of kind of PR to try to get people to come to live in Alberta. And so they've been featuring our beautiful Rocky Mountains, and they've been putting advertisements up in the subways in Toronto, and they've been trying to attract people to move to Alberta. So that is kind of interesting that they're doing that.
And I'll share another cool thing, which actually Peter identified yesterday. As we flip over here to the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program and we scroll down, you will see something that's quite nice. 9,750 nominations is now how much Alberta has been granted. And all the provinces, the feds have upped it, the quotas, which used to be 6,500. So this is really, really cool. It's a wonderful development for people who are looking to find pathways. And obviously, when we have rounds of invitations that are focused on PNPs right now, clearly that's a heavy, heavy indicator. And it's not surprising, Alicia, when you look at the blog post that I wrote last November, I guess, on the TR to PR. The minister is heavily looking at trying to find ways to address the critical skill shortages that are across the country that are growing. And who better to understand where those shortages are than the provinces themselves? And they've always been tapped into the local economies and where labor shortages exist, more so than the federal government. So it's not surprising that, that we're seeing those PNP draws. But for people who are stuck, who were sold a certain plan when they first came, all of those international students, my heart goes out to them, because really, like, the department can do better for them, and stringing them along. I know there's lots of initiatives that they've been undertaking, but But minister, come on, my friend. Like when you do an FSW draw, that sends an awful message to the people that are in Canada that you just don't care. And I know that's not the case, but that's how people feel. So when you have individuals that are languishing and just hoping that something is going to materialize, and then they see the exact opposite of what they would hope to see, well, it just makes things really, really difficult. So my heart goes out to all of them. Okay, so we've got M here who sent a super chat. You got to send your question there, M, because I can't search for you very easily amongst all of the all of the messages. So if you have a question, that's awesome. If not, well, there's a big highlighted shout out for you. So I'll watch for a question that you might have. Okay. Let's start off with Sam here, and minister, I think we've roasted you long enough, so we'll drop you off there, my friend. Okay. So Sam says, for the online PR application portal, it's changed and it's confusing what documents to upload, and the checklist is different. Any suggestions? Well, Sam, I think what we need to do, and I'm actually, because of the changes now, I'm going to have to re-record some of the videos for my courses that I created. But yeah, this is what we do as a firm, right? This is what we do, right, Alicia?
Yeah. And so we will guide you specifically through how to file your application. And that's part of hiring us, retaining us to be able to assist you one-on-one and go through this with a fine-tooth comb to make sure, because absolutely immigration changes these portals. They kind of created it as a minimum viable product. So they said, okay, blah, here's everything. Here's all the documents that you could possibly need on a PR application. And that was overwhelming for people because they didn't know which ones do I have to fill out, which ones are required for spousals, which ones are required for PNP applications. And it wasn't ideal. So then they decided, okay, well, now we're going to make it more targeted. We're going to revise the portals, but that also causes confusion. And they know, and there's still inconsistencies in what they say on the online guide, what they have on the online instructions for the portal, what it says on the document checklist. So it is always a good idea to make sure that you are hiring somebody to specifically go through this with you, and they understand the intimate details of your application, spouses, kids, everybody who's involved in that application, so that it isn't missed, so that you make sure that you hit everything that you need to have in that application.
Yes. Here's a little point just to clarify maybe for Rowena, because there's a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding about the programs and things like that. And so Rowena says, I don't see any chance for people like us who are already in Canada because the draws are for people outside. Well, they're clearly not, Rowena. The PNPs, by and large, are dominated by people that are already working and living in those provinces. Yes, there are some outlanders that can get job offers from companies or qualify through some of the human capital variations of the streams. But realistically, if you look at where the draws are, aside from that FSW, which I'll be honest, Alicia, I would say at least half or more of the FSW candidates probably were both CEC and FSW. So I know the perceptions are out there, but it's important to kind of clarify, because it's easy for people to spin things. Absolutely. Okay, let's see. Okay, here's a good one, Alicia. And this is definitely one we probably want to do this. But Eric says, I have a misrepresentation problem in the US, but I need a study permit to study in Canada. Should I attempt to apply using your help? Well, that's a pretty easy question, Alicia. Do you want to address that?
Yeah, really, Eric, please book a consult and we can talk specifically about what kind of misrep, how long ago, what did it involve, why did that happen? And then we can talk about the factors that immigration is going to look at when they try to assess your temporary intent, and whether they think that you would be legitimately coming to Canada and going back to your home country when you're done. So really, it's something where I'd need to get the specifics from you to be able to offer you some advice to see, maybe this is a big problem, and maybe it's not worth you trying to submit a study permit because it's serious enough and recent enough that it could really negatively affect you. But maybe you have some way of explaining what happened, and maybe you've got some other factors to go to temporary intent. So
Yeah.
we'd just need to talk. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And Eric, one of the reasons that we strongly encourage people who have very specific questions like this to book a consult is because in many cases, and well, often, the answer that we give people is that, you know what, Canada probably isn't the right option for you, and we can help people to realize the realities of their situation so that you're not filing applications that are doomed for refusal and wasting tons of money, especially those that hire other representatives that are happy to prepare the application, knowing that it's got a very, very strong likelihood of refusal. We just don't do that. And so that little bit of money for the consult can really help so that you know where you're really sitting and where you really stand. Okay, Justin says, or John, one of the two, how to choose which Canadian embassy if sending an application online. Can you clarify that, Alicia? John's a little bit confused probably about that process.
Yeah, so most of the time now you can submit that application online and they're going to process it wherever they process it. The wrinkle comes in when you need to go and do biometrics or you need to send in your passport request. And so normally you're going to be choosing the visa office that processes your country of nationality or the country where you have current legal status. So if you are a national of one country, but you're a resident in another country and you have legal status there, sometimes you're able to get your documents processed through that embassy. But most of the time, it's going to be the embassy that is responsible for your country of nationality.
All right. Next question. This is from Rodrigo Alves do Nascimento. I think yes, he is from Brazil. I knew it. Good afternoon, Mark and Alicia. How are you? I'm from Brazil. Congratulations. Well, that's great. Thanks. Okay. Romeo says, postgrad work permit extension program. I think really he's asking, those asterisks, exclamation marks should be question marks. So what are your thoughts on that? Think there'll be a postgrad, another postgrad extension, given the fact we're already into the next year and they just finished doing it before?
Probably not. I mean, they've done two now, right? They had the 2021 PGWP 18-month open work permit extension, and they had the 2022. Most people were not eligible for the 2022. I did have one interesting consult with washers who got an email and they were notified that they were eligible to apply for the second one, which is really rare. And congratulations to them because they managed to get that through, which was, the timing was just perfect. So that was great for them. But most people, a PGWP, a postgrad work permit, is one and done. So if you have completed your program of studies and it was only 1 year and you're not, unless you go back to school right away and stack that with another program and complete 2 programs within 1 year or 2 years so that you have a 2-year program, then if you've applied for that PGWP, it's going to be tied to the length of your program of studies. So it's a minimum 8 month. You can get an 8-month work permit. 1 year, you get a 1-year work permit. If you have a 2-year program of studies, you actually get a 3-year PGWP, but that's it.
Yeah. And I had that discussion just with a consult this morning, a couple who are over in Qatar right now. And I strongly emphasized, and I will do it over and over again, you guys. It just is not in your best interest if you're going to come and study and spend that money to just do a 1-year program, even though it's cheaper. Because for this exact reason, what we're in right now, people that had a 2-year program that allowed for a 3-year postgrad work permit, there's time to figure things out. And I always, point people, if they're saying, where should I go? Well, if permanent residence is your ultimate option or your desire, obviously you're not going to, that's not a factor in the adjudication of your study permit. But ultimately, when you're choosing where should I go and study, like I really like the Atlantic provinces because there are multiple pathways there, one more, in fact, than many other locations. You've got the Atlantic Immigration Program, you've got the local, the provincial nominee programs by province, as well as express entry and, and other programs that might exist as well that are federal. But, some provinces like Alberta have one of the communities in the rural and northern immigration program, Claresholm. But for the Atlantic provinces, it's pretty much any employer who gets designated and you can go through that route. So ultimately you want to find a good pathway. And I'd strongly encourage you to read that blog post. We're waiting for the video to be edited right now so you can watch it. But the blog post that I wrote that talks about what express entry is really going to look like, I think, when the minister launches, based on their own preamble to the questions they were asking people, the stakeholders, that they wanted them to respond to. Basically, they would say, well, what if, what do you think about this scenario? That's kind of how they posed it. And I talk about it in more detail in the blog, but an example is for international students. One of the questions that they had asked stakeholders was, do you think it's important for international students who have education in the key sectors, the sectors where they're experiencing labor shortages, do they even need to work? Or should there be a pathway direct from school to permanent residence? So that was one of the questions that's very interesting. And you guys will probably remember with the TR to PR pathway program, international students who had not yet completed their studies, but had the 1 year of cumulative work experience in one of the essential occupations were able to, to get through even before they'd completed their degree. So it's kind of like the flip side. So there's lots of direction that the minister can go. And, as I look at some of the comments, you guys, I absolutely feel your frustration. I just want to pull up one that I saw here. For example, from Sanisha. So she says, I'm between a rock and a hard stone. And hard stone is a rock, but you're between two rocks, sure, or a hard place. I'm super stressed. The uncertainty is not fair to us. And we hear you. We do. Alicia was attending meetings. She's now more involved with the Canadian Bar Association. I've stepped down and she's running the national conference. She's the chair of the national conference that's coming up here in June in Ottawa for the Canadian Bar Association immigration section. But she was attending meetings today with immigration, and there's a lot of uncertainty. But we can't say anything in particular about what may or may not be happening until the government releases things. But ultimately, there will be some changes coming. It's just, boy, I think if I was to ask Sanisha, she probably would like to have seen them happen in February, not in the spring, which could ultimately be all the way to June, whatever, middle of June, third week in June. So we hear you, and we wish that, this is the best we can do is to, I'm serious, is to pull in Minister Fraser here and say, Minister Fraser, okay, this is you. Please listen to what Sanisha is saying here, and don't sit anymore. They are the priority, not all these other avenues that you guys are pursuing. They are the priority. So hopefully he listens, and his staffers who have nothing better to do than watch what Mark, Holthe, and Alicia Backman-Bahari are saying about immigration. But please, don't wait any longer. This is where the future is, and you know how important these international grads are, and what they mean for the economy and the sacrifices they've made. So please, that's my, that's my plea. All right. Okay, let's get to Akil. He says, oh, come on, Akil. Seriously, my name is right here. This is my name right here. Okay. That's actually really funny. Hi, Mike and Alicia. I'm just poking funny at my friend. We appreciate the question. I would like to know if I'm PNP nominated, can I continue my work remotely for another province while residing in the nominated province? This is an interesting question.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, it might be, there might be some scenario where you could make an argument to make it work. And I would like to hear what's going on for you, and you can book a consult and we can talk about it. But in general, I don't like when people play games with the PNP programs. So if a province is nominating you, they are using up one of their quota spots, and they are saying, we think that this person has a legitimate intent to reside in our province, and we want to go to bat for them, and we want to nominate them. And there's an element of trust there, and it's important that you are holding up your end of the bargain. If you've said, hey, I'm going to live in Alberta, then you need to stay in Alberta. You need to have some sort of tie to Alberta. And maybe, maybe you've got some transition zone where you're doing some work for an employer outside of Alberta, but you've actually moved and you're in Alberta and you've got your lease and you've got your driver's license and you've got your bank accounts opened. And maybe your family, your extended family is living here. You've got a sibling here. And maybe you actually do really intend to live in Alberta in the long run. But be really careful, because work is a strong draw. And so if you have work in another province, often the provinces will get pretty skittish and they'll think that, well, you might not actually stay in the province. And keep in mind, everybody, that just because a province has nominated you does not mean that that nomination is secure. If they think that you've done something that was misrep, or that you were not being honest with them, or you've submitted your application APR under your express entry profile, and there's something that just really worries them in what you've written in there, they can cancel your nomination, right? They can just say, we're going to take that nomination away. And as soon as you lose that 600 points, you're done. And so just be really careful and make sure that if you did say you had an intent to live in that province, that you are following through with your intent to live in that province.
All right, we've got a question from Jules here. He says, I think I understand what he's asking. Hi, Mark, can I hire from the Netherlands for PR? So I think, we do these live streams and we spend a lot of time answering questions, and, we talk about the various courses and things that we have. I'm just going to flip over here. Just give me 1 second and flip the screen over here. So if you go to our law firm website, right here in the top left, you'll see that we have our approach. The podcast, Igor's dropped that in there too now. But our approach is all about helping people. And you can join the newsletter, absolutely. But the whole purpose of how we set up our firm was to be able to give us the flexibility to work with people. See the computers here? See the hands on the keyboards and everything? To work with people no matter where they live in the world. And not, so having someone in the Netherlands who is looking for assistance with PR, that is 100% in our wheelhouse. And so we do, and this is funny. I love this. Peter was actually the one, he was the one who joined me yesterday. Mark is expensive, but he is good. I love that. You get what you paid for. Anyways. Okay. So, but basically what we're saying is, no matter where you are, that's why we structure the firm. You don't need to be sitting in front of us for us to be able to support you in your journey. We're not going to commandeer your application. We're not going to take over things and file it through our representative portal. We're going to support you and teach you and help you so that you not only have the comfort of knowing you've got an immigration lawyer supporting you, but you understand why the questions are asked in the first place. And when we explain to you why, then you know what to put in the questions. And, neither Alicia nor I will ever go back from this model. We love it. We sleep at night because we know that you and us together, like we're going to make sure that application is put together properly. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Here's another one right after. Ferguson, how much does your law firm charge when I want to apply for visitor visas? So we are a very transparent firm, you guys. So if you're wondering what we charge as a firm of immigration lawyers, so we don't have immigration consultants in our firm, if you look at the fees right here, you can see a breakdown of what we charge for the various applications. And you can see work, study, and visit is here. So for a temporary resident visa, we start at $2,000. So it depends on how many people are included, but generally a principal applicant's about $2,000 plus GST for a TRV. And that's you can go to the site and you can check out the fees. And we always start with a consultation because the last thing in the world that Alicia or I want is for you to pay us $2,000. And then we say, oh, you've got all these refusals, a deportation, maybe you've got a 5-year bar, and then we have to return your money, which is a pain. So we'd rather book a consult and get you up to speed, confirm your eligibility, and then from there, dive right in and support you. And one other thing I'll point out, which I had a discussion with a client this morning, we do not mess around with these things, you guys. Because of our model and because we're working collaboratively with you, there's very little delay in us being able to get together with you to review your application, go through everything, help you even upload and submit it together. There's very little delay, unlike other times where I've had firms where I've had up to 5 or 6 paralegals working underneath me, and there was volumes. And if the paralegal was busy, your application just kind of sat there. That doesn't exist with our firm. We really focus on giving you high touch service. So there we go. There's the plug for Holthe Immigration Law, you guys. There's the plug. So yes, we have an insidious motive in answering all your questions for free. We want you guys who want to hire us or hire an immigration representative to hire Holthe Immigration Law and our team, Mark and Alicia and Chanel and Cedric, and soon to be Igor. So Yes, we have nefarious motives of doing this. Okay, let's see what we've got next on our list. Okay, promise says, is a reference letter required for all history of employment? So this is the work history section included in your PR, or is it just the employment included in the express entry profile? What she means is, do you need to include all your work history over the past 10 years, Alicia, or do you just need to include reference letters for the for the work history that you put in the work history section? That's
Mhm.
the question.
And this question gets asked all the time, and
Yep.
people do it incorrectly all the time. So keep in mind that when you're filling out your express entry profile, when it asks you for the work history, if you read the fine print at the front, at the top of that page, it says that the work history that you are going to be claiming, right? The work history that you're relying on for points. And so when you're looking at maximizing your points, you're going to want to make sure that you have, as much foreign work experience as you can if you are able to prove that you have high skilled outside Canada work experience, and then any in Canada work experience that you may have as well. But make sure that only the work experience that you're using for points is put into that section, because if you get an invitation to apply, then the system is going to generate an upload spot for employer reference letters, employment records for every single job you've put in your work history section. Now, you don't need to put everything in that work history section, but you do need to put everything in your personal history. And this is because you have to tell immigration what you've been doing with your life, because they will double check it for logic, and they will make sure that you're not misrepresenting and leaving gaps, and that your history makes sense. And so everything goes into the personal history section, but you don't have to have letters of references for every single job that you have in your personal history section.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Alicia. And just to remind everyone, within the Express Entry course, this is it here, link in the description below. This is exactly what it looks like. When you go in here, that specific question is covered in 4 different locations. So completing your Express Entry profile, we talk about filling in the actual work history section right here, lesson 14. And it's covered in the EAPR portion, the same thing for the work history, as well as a detailed explanation when it comes to mastering your documents. Each one of these covers a different document from the Express Entry document checklist. And you can see the video alone for records of employment is 23 minutes. And then we have a ton of other resources to help you navigate your way through it, including we've got about 30 sample reference letters. So that's just one tiny aspect of this course. And so, yeah, because we get these questions so frequently, Promise, you were the winner of a free access to the course. So I'm going to challenge you. Did you watch those lessons? Because we covered that in there. And then when we hold the master class, which we're going to hold another Express Entry master class at the end of this month, on Tuesday, I have to go in for a little eye surgery. So I'm going to be a little out of commission, you guys. And I've kind of blocked off 2 weeks. I'm hoping it won't be 2 weeks, but the surgery I have is a little bit more invasive, so it may result in me not being able to see very clearly for a while. So we'll have to rely heavily on Alicia and Cedric and Chanel to help out during that period. But yes, the course, we're looking at doing the masterclass again here at the end of the month. Okay, let's see. Next up here, we've got Hannah. And Hannah says, I declared 1 year of unemployment in my personal history before the ITA. Can this have an impact on the progress of my application? She's an FSW outland from Morocco. This is something I explained this to a consult just yesterday, Alicia. I had 8 consults yesterday, and one of them I explained this exact same thing because people were afraid. Well, does IRCC care?
No, they don't care. They do care whether you're being honest. And so if you're trying to hide unemployment periods, that's never a good thing, right? Just be honest. They don't care if you had a year of unemployment. Things happen, people get sick, crazy things happen in countries all over the world. It makes sense that there are gaps in people's employment history. What does matter is making sure that the points that you're claiming are points that you're eligible to claim. So if you are looking back for your outside Canada work experience under Federal Skilled Worker Program, you can only count the work that you've done within the last 10 years. So make sure that you're looking at the last 10-year period and that you're you're counting your qualified work experience. So you have to have as a minimum eligibility criteria at least 1 year continuous high skilled work in one primary occupation that you've identified. And then after that, you can make sure that you're accumulating as many years as you can based on what you've legitimately done and the letters of reference that you think you can get from the employers and the proof of the fact that you were actually employed there with pay stubs and tax documents and that sort of thing. Sometimes what happens is people say, well, I was working for an employer, I was, but they're not going to support me. They're not going to give me a letter. They weren't paying me properly, and how do I prove it? And that's a little bit of a different issue. And then it's a judgment call on whether you try to include that sort of employment history because you might not be able to prove it.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. This is one we found M. So here's M's comment. Not only did M just provide a super chat, but I was able to successfully file my TR to PR application with your guidance and got my PR. All your YouTube videos helped in my journey from international student to PR, and I will absolutely celebrate that. So cool. I just love hearing those success stories. And we know that the government is going to be launching you guys some programs. And I want you to understand something. With the TR to PR pathway, no one had a freaking clue what this was going to look like. So you knew as much about the process, pretty much as most representatives when the government launched it. I was in a unique position where I was able to see what was happening, and I had a few little sneak peeks to the TR to PR program and the actual interface portal before it was launched. But unlike most immigration representatives out there, I shared every single thing that I knew freely with the world. And Igor and I spent 4 straight days with very little sleep pumping out a course because of the tight timelines. And this is coming again, you guys. There's going to be some new programs. So I want you to remember us at the Canadian Immigration Institute. Before you go running off to hire another representative, understand that we are going to be creating a course, comprehensive courses to help you navigate your way through these new programs. And Alicia, I think I had over 450, maybe a little bit more people ultimately go through the TR to PR pathway course. And it was so exciting because all of these people knew well in advance exactly what they needed to do. And they raced, and some of them filed their applications in like 6 minutes. Some of them were the very, very first people to get PR. And then those who were kind of straggling or, maybe used other firms where they had to wait in line and get their applications submitted further in the queue, they were waiting for years. And we still have all the way through 2023 potentially for them to finally become permanent residents. And so when I hear positive stories like this, I just absolutely want to celebrate. So happy for you. And just so excited to keep creating content. And then Alicia and I also had clients that retained us directly to help them. And they're all merely permanent residents now. And as the government, announces future programs, and read my blog post because I talk about my thoughts on that. And for those of you who are tuning in a little bit late, it's pretty simple. You just go to our firm website here, and at the top, there's a section for blogs. And the video is with our video editor. Hopefully our video editor is still going to be my video editor, but he's taken too long to get the video turned around. But if you look here, this one entitled Change is my top 7 insights for where I think exactly the minister is going to go with these targeted draws. And it's a guide to help you start preparing now. And one of the little key takeaways I'll pull out is that those who are strategically planning now, when you probably won't qualify until next year, the year after, or maybe even longer, maybe you're 3 years out, when you have a very strategic plan in place, even where you're going to study, if you're targeted, strategic, and you're adaptable and flexible, you're going to have the greatest likelihood of ensuring permanent residence versus being stuck kind of right now, like the hundreds of, there's probably over 100,000 people that are in this limbo just waiting for CEC and the minister to do something to help them. So that's what I like. It's not just what the minister's saying, but what it really means for the future. And that's what's in that blog post. So go check that one out.
And one thing I just want to jump in and say here, Mark, is you and I have been immigration lawyers for a long time, for basically almost 2 decades, right? And one thing that I think is super important if you guys are looking at having somebody give you advice on an immigration application is you need to be strategic. You need to think long term. You need to think about you and your spouse and your kids, and you need to look not just, 6 months out, but a year out, 2 years out, 3 years out, and make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. So really take the time to look far enough out.
Perfect. All right. I want to celebrate right here with a nice applause. Oh, wrong one. This one. Hetty, who just became a member of the YouTube channel. So that's awesome, Hetty. And we will most definitely jump in and pull up your question. So hello, Mark and Alicia. Any chance of more consistent CEC draws like it was in 2021? Eventually, those CRS scores were either below or just slightly above 400, if I remember correctly. Do you want to give everybody a little bit of a flashback, Alicia, on those draws and the circumstances around those?
Yeah. So things have been a little bit of a roller coaster for the last few years. And you can go and you can take a look at the CEC round of invitation historical draws. And so if you go to the rounds of invitation, you look back and you see, okay, what has immigration been doing for the last few years? Yes, there was a giant draw of people who had a really low score, but that was only for very specific groups of people who are in Canada who actually had a profile sitting in there. And that was, it was very bizarre when they did that draw on the February 13th draw a few years ago. But other than that, the scores have been quite high. And it's been really tough for people who don't have in Canada work experience most of the time and usually a job offer, and usually some French skills, and potentially a nomination from a province in order to be able to get a draw. And so those CRS scores, they were hovering above 500 when they first opened up those no program specified draws after the drought in draws because of COVID. And the scores haven't come down that far, right? We're still sitting at a very high CRS. When you're looking at the PNP draws, those are even higher, but that's because at a minimum, you have 600 points from a provincial nomination. So the PNP draws maybe throw people off a little bit. Those scores look super high, but it's because everybody has 600 points. So if you subtract 600 points, you'll know exactly what their CRS was without those 600 points. But probably for most people, that CRS score has to be high. Now, what Mark's been talking about and the fact that things are changing and the fact that, there's going to be some sort of targeted draws happening, this is going to shake everything up. And so we don't know what the new criteria are for sure, but we have heard the minister say there's specific sectors and there's specific factors, and they're going to be giving the provinces more ability to make decisions in part of these applications. So we do know there are some things coming that will change how express entry works fundamentally. And so stay tuned. We're going to be putting out that information.
Right here. Yep. All right. Profil says, and thanks for the super. Profil says, I have a notification of interest, master stream from Ontario. Okay. I've been living outside Canada for more than 13 months in the past 2 years working remotely. Can I provide my pay stubs from Ontario employer to prove my residency? So I was normally going to just ring the little triangle here, and that's probably the direction we should go. But I think this is actually a real easy answer, Alicia. So do you want to tackle the kind of elements of quasi misrep here?
Mm-hmm. So take a look at the program-specific requirements for each of these provincial nominee categories. So if the province is requiring you to provide residency, then you have to be physically residing in the province. You can't be saying, well, I'm getting a pay stub, therefore that's my proof of residency. So if it's required that you have an in-person element, that you are physically in that province, then it's not going to be enough to say that you've been working here. You can make an argument for some of the programs where they say, okay, have an intent to reside in the province. But if it's required for you to physically be in the province and the employer has to be in the province and you have to be working in the province, then you just have to be honest. You have to tell them, look, I am employed, my employer's in the province, but I'm physically residing outside and here's my history. Here's my travel history, here's my residence.
Perfect. Okay, we'll hit another super chat. And this one here is from Alu. So the question is, my husband is sponsoring me. I'm on a postgrad work permit, which expires on April the 14th. Oh, so many people. I'm assuming this year. My question is, can I apply for an extension without an acknowledgement of receipt, or do I need to have that AOR to even apply for the extension?
Yeah, and Alu, I wish you would book a consultation, but these are tricky situations because I get what you're saying. There's a whole bunch of clients. I've been working with a number of people who filed spousal sponsorship applications, and sometimes, some happily, they have a PGWP, and they were thinking, oh, great, I've got my spousal application in process. Eventually, I'll get my AOR, because right now the government is saying if you're doing an in-Canada application, that you wait for that acknowledgement of receipt and then you send in your work permit application. It specifically says on the portal you shouldn't be doing it at the same time. However, people like you who have status that's going to expire soon and really need to continue to work, well, you're stuck, right? You're in a tough spot. And it's interesting. I had another in Canada spousal client who recently, they knew this, they knew the rule, they're sitting tight, they're actually working remotely for a company outside of Canada, so they were okay. But they interestingly just got a letter from immigration saying, hey, send us your work permit application to the Edmonton Case Processing Center. And I don't know what's happening. Maybe immigration is changing their policy on this. Maybe they will twig and they will find the applications that were submitted through the portal, and then they will ask people to actually submit the paper application, the IMM 5710, the change of application or change of conditions on the work permit to Edmonton. I don't know what's happening with that. Maybe it's just a one-off. There might be a way to try to submit your application for that work permit. You should do so before your PGWP expires to make sure that you have maintained status, if it's really important that you continue to work. So even though the government's saying to wait, if there are circumstances that justify it, just make sure to file that application, make sure that you explain what's going on, prove what you can. It's a little bit complicated, so I would say book a consult and I can give you some specific advice on how to do it.
Yes. Well, our time is just about up here, Alicia. We'll finish off with a few other positive success stories. So Mohammed, he says, hi there. I finally will land tomorrow in Canada. Your help was a gift of God. What are the few instructions you can give to land and pass the immigration without any issues? Well, you've covered, you've really accomplished the heavy lifting at this stage. And when we have people coming through, we always advise them to make sure they have a copy of their proof of funds in some form when they go through, as well as their, obviously your COPR and your passport and all those kinds of things. And then, there's also some elements of the goods to follow and things like that we advise our clients with. But Mohammed, just encourage you to book a consult and we can go through that in detail to find the little pieces. But so happy for you. Alicia, do you have any other last thoughts for Mohammed?
Yeah, my overarching advice, and this is advice, it's not just information. Be honest, right? You've got to just be honest with immigration. So if they think that you're lying or they think that you're hiding something, that's where everything goes sideways. So just be honest.
Yeah, exactly. And then Golnar, thank you so much. He says, totally endorsing Holthe model. Well, that's great. That is fantastic. All right. Oh, Promise is defending herself. She says, I'm not done yet with the course, taking my time to dissect it. Please get well soon. Thank you, Promise. And when you have over 10 hours of content and you're working, I understand, Promise. So I won't give you too much of a hard time. So awesome. All right. I think we have covered. I don't think we have any last. I don't want to leave any supers hanging out there. I think we're good there. So thank you so much, Alicia, for joining me today. And as always, you guys, with these Canadian Immigration Live Q&As, or what are we got going on here? I guess we're a live Q&A. Yes. It's sponsored by Holthe Immigration Law, our law firm. And this is where we practice. This is where we work with you and clients who just feel like they need that extra comfort in knowing there's someone that has their back. And that's what we do. And you can go over to our law firm, and all the information, like I talked about before, is all contained in here on our law firm about us and our team, our approach, all this stuff. Don't forget about the podcast as well. And if you want to learn more about our team, episode 103 is super awesome. And remember, you can subscribe to this. If I view the episode here. I think we've got it. Oh, yes. So there's a whole bunch of other links here, but you can connect through iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're usually there. So definitely subscribe to that. And remember that we have 3 pillar courses: express entry, study permit course, spousal sponsorship course, that are all available on demand for you to access and walk through. And there will be upcoming master classes associated with these as well. So stay tuned for them. And when you subscribe, you'll get notified when the master class is. And going forward, we are including those master classes for free when you subscribe to the courses. So just like we used to, we had a short little period where we transitioned to a little bit of a different model, but it wasn't, people seems like they'd like the masterclass to be right included with it. So we're going to do that, but it takes time, like Promise indicated, to go through all of the 10 hours of content and the study permit course and the spousal sponsorship course. So all of those are available to help you and guide you in your journey. All right. Thanks so much, guys. Take care and see you later, Alicia.